Well, I mean, that's fair. But I'm just saying, I think there's a difference there, between.
I think what Zach is referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is eventually there's going to be an end to it, and it's an occupation as opposed to.
Well, I guess the end of the occupation is when you've got Occupy America everywhere, and something actually changes. That's the end goal.
Okay, yeah, a more desired peaceful resolution would be, and I think that this could even be structured by February, is so one of the criticisms of Iraq, like to change subjects for a second, is that you don't have a specific set of goals that you want to say once these goals either are or are not satisfied by a specific date. No, I'm just saying even now, once you set a specific set of goals by a specific date, you can declare success or failure. Okay. Well, I think that you could do the same thing. That if you have a deadline of February, then you could say that we'd like something, whether it be one policy objective at least embraced and endorsed by a specific municipal representative, or the agreement to move somewhere else or whatever, then yeah, I would agree that more goals should be made, and if satisfied, then you can kind of take it from there or not.
That's fair. I think one of the problems that I've had with a lot of people who demanded goals was that they were these very specific policy options.
Yeah, and that's sort of like saying, does terrorism accomplish policy change?
Yeah.
The answer is no. That's been studied. I studied terrorism here at UTD, so the answer is no. So, but the flip side of that is that what political tools do you use to push when you really feel like there is a status quo that is not interested in hearing your specific set of complaints?
Well, I think the thing is that, what I saw was that people were interested. I mean, that's the thing, is that this really is a universal issue. I feel, I want to live well. That's everybody wants to live well.
No. I agree with you that we all want to live well, but this is not about living well. This is about not being exploited, and I think that there's really a big difference there.
I think I don't know, I feel like that's kind of the same thing. I guess it's a big amorphous blob to me, but...
Well, if you'd like, we can... Why does it remain amorphous? What would you like to know? What questions can you answer? The reason I ask is because, like, when I say the difference between living well and being exploited, living well, you could define that as being 1.0, 1.5, 2.0 income of the poverty line, versus you look at the amounts of the rate of unemployment and various other financial statistics of how basically the engine of Wall Street works against people like you and me with regards to financial equality.
Right. I guess for me it's more of a opposition to greed, opposition to a certain. When I say live well, I'm not talking about people should be able to do whatever they want, which I think is, I've said that to some libertarians, and that seems to be what they think I was saying, but more of a sort of general, like, living well, living decently, relatively well taken care of, decent community. I mean, I'm somewhat of a libertarian, but I want small government. I think these small communities really, and this is my problem with America on the whole, is that it's too big to fail. As they were saying, there's just too much to manage from a federal governmental standpoint that you can't do well by it. You can't do right by everybody, which is why I want to see it move back to the people, and that's what I see happen. Like when I was at the occupation, direct democracy. That was what was happening, and so the government represented the people because the government was the people. That's.
Well, I think you raise a very interesting concern. You kind of asked the question: is direct democracy more possible in America now than it once was? I would probably agree with that. I would probably say that we have relics like the Electoral College, and you can go into various sort of constitutional arguments about how voting and democracy takes place in America. So kind of what I'm hearing you say is, and I think that, I guess, the libertarian position as well, is that if the federal government is too large to administer effectively, then you need to empower the people to govern more directly.
Yes.
And I would probably agree with that. I think that there are some flaws in the way the voting system occurs, in the way that representation occurs in general. Single member district, first past the post.
I mean, that's for me. That's the message of this, is that I wanted my government to represent me, you know, and I feel that it doesn't. So
It's interesting because I think that's a really great message. At the same time, I wouldn't say that the way representation takes place has been a core value of Occupy Wall Street to date. I thought that it's been much more about the symbolism of economic disparity and those types of things. I think that the two issues can go hand in hand. At the same time, if one of the things that I'm calling for is a return to the Glass-Steagall era of regulation, that isn't necessarily congruent with smaller government, because I'm actually asking for more regulation. How do you feel about that?
I mean, there are things that I do think that the federal government needs to do, and what I have read on Glass-Steagall seems to make sense. I mean, I feel that that is a policy that I can't believe that it ever got repealed.
That it got repealed?
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Well, and that's, I mean, business is always arguing for deregulation because they sort of in a libertarian fashion feel that they can do more with less constraint. That's partially true, but even Greenspan in, I want to say, 2008 or 2009 during the congressional hearings recanted his entire worldview about the business sector's sense of creative destruction, and that it wasn't always, that there was not enough of a sense of self-preservation, that in an era of less regulation, that they were going to observe those conflicts of interest and that it would not fail. And they demonstrated that that was not the case.
Right. There was actually, I can't remember if it was the Colbert Report or the Daily Show this last week, where they were talking about...
Those are the new sources of news, my friend.
That's, yeah, exactly. That's, dang, it's just
That's where I'm going to check my facts.
No, I mean, they had on one of the guests, I can't, what was it that we were just talking about, because it completely slipped my mind.
Glass-Steagall, financial reform?
Nope, no, I cannot remember which guest it was. This is probably good for...
Once again, Rick Perry when we were back.
That was...
Was it one of the people that helped repeal it? Barney Frank Dodd, one of those?
No, I mean, it was this last week.
No, but that's not the correct one, so.
No, I mean, it was this last week, and I can't remember what it was they were talking about. I mean, it was relevant when I remembered it, but now I can't remember it, so it doesn't really matter. So, you know,
It's all good.
It's one of those things.
All right, I kind of want to like wrap up, and I guess we can take a break before we introduce our next guest speaker. But like, as a last caveat, what would you guys like to see change or improve, or any alterations you would make to what's going on with movement?
I would like information to be spread in a more effective manner. I would like people to know exactly what the protest is about. You mentioned Inside Job before Zach arrived. That's a very good intro to the financial grievances of our nation. Understanding what Glass-Steagall is, that's a big thing. Dodd-Frank reform. These legislative acts that define our culture, define our economic system.
Understanding the feedback loop between money and politics, understanding the gravity of the Citizens United rule and equating corporate campaign donations to free speech. That's a very brilliant interpretation of the Constitution. But yeah, in a more general sense, if you would identify as an Occupy protester or advocate, that if someone said, well then what is it about, that everyone has some sort of elevator speech with regards to financial reform that they're familiar with, so that all of those claims of lack of direction, lack of objectives, lack of understanding can be sort of nipped in the bud.
I think what I would like the most is for people who are interested and people who want to participate but, you know, don't have the time, would be to make the time and actually get out to the protest, because
I very much agree. Well, and make it out to the protest, but also, as Austin said, to participate in the online activism element.
Yes.
Pay attention to what's going on. Be willing to look through news aggregators rather than just mainstream media, looking into alternative media that are going to report on some little events that you might not necessarily hear about otherwise. And then, like you said, informing oneself to then have a better understanding.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're going to go to a musical break here, and when we get back, we will be introducing Dan.
Yes.
Okay. We did, guys. It's
I like
very
the
cool.
Daft Punk there.